Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Police in Thailand say they've arrested a retired Dutchman in what can only be described as a bizarre attempted heist after he was caught dragging a stolen ATM down the road with his pickup truck. The strange incident began in the early hours of September 22nd when officers were called to the Bantum community in Khon province. A witness reported that someone had tried to remove an ATM from the local Siam commercial bank branch. By the time police arrived, the suspect, 60-year-old Sitsa Kuflar, had already managed to rip the ATM free from its frame. Using a trolley and his black pickup truck, Kuflar was hauling the massive machine down the street. At about 2:05 a.m., officers intercepted him on a local road, noting that he was driving against the flow of traffic with the ATM bouncing behind his vehicle. Drag marks could also apparently be seen on the pavement leading to the crime scene. Authorities say Kuflar, a Dutch national living in the area, admitted that he had planned the theft as a way to get cash. He explained that he had recently transferred 10 million baht, more than $310,000 US, to his Thai wife for a business investment. But after she told him the money wasn't enough, they started arguing, and out of frustration, he decided to try and steal the ATM. Police confirmed that Kuflar tested negative for drugs and that his wife had no knowledge of the plan. A police source told reporters, quote, "She only learned about the ATM theft when we contacted her." Forensic teams collected fingerprints from both the ATM and the pickup, while bank representatives filed formal complaints. Kuflar is now facing multiple charges, including nighttime theft, property damage, and using a vehicle in the commission of a crime. Under Thai law, that last detail could add extra time to his sentence, potentially bringing it up to 10.5 years in prison, along with fines ranging from the equivalent of about $60 to $450 US. At the time of this recording, Kuflar remains in custody and the investigation continues. Representatives from England's Derbyshire police say that they've recently dealt with what might be one of the strangest and slowest vehicle chases they've ever seen after a serial shoplifter attempted to escape officers in a car even when it no longer had functioning tires. The whole thing began last month, on August 18th, when Derbyshire police announced they were on the lookout for a Ford Mondeo suspected of being used in multiple retail thefts. The car was eventually spotted in the small village of Swarkston, where its driver, 42-year-old Uten Rook, tried to evade capture. Officers deployed a stinger device which punctured all 4 of the vehicle's tires. But instead of stopping, Rook carried on, leading officers on what police later described as, quote, one of the lowest of the slowest pursuits ever seen in Derbyshire. Dashcam footage of the bizarre incident shows Rook creeping along village roads at speeds of just 10 to 15 miles per hour, his mangled tires flapping against the wheel rims. At one point, he even tried to swerve away from pursuing units, but he was eventually boxed in by police vehicles. The chase came to an end when he rammed into a crash barrier, striking one of the patrol cars in the process and injuring the officer inside. When Rook was pulled from the car and arrested, investigators quickly realized there was much more going on. Not only was the 42-year-old already banned from driving, but he was also wanted for a parole violation. Checks revealed that his Ford's license plate had been tampered with using tape so that the vehicle could be used in a string of shoplifting incidents, including thefts at a Greg's Bakery in Derby City Centre on July 8th and a co-op store on Chellaston Road on August 13th. In addition to those thefts, Rook was charged with failing to stop for police, driving while disqualified, using a vehicle without insurance, failing to provide a specimen, criminal damage, and assault. He appeared before Southern Derbyshire Magistrates Court on August 20th, where he admitted the offenses. The judge handed him a 41-week prison sentence, disqualified him from driving for 692 days, and ordered him to pay £85 in court costs, as well as compensation to the injured officer and the 2 businesses he targeted. Police in the Argentine province of Buenos Aires say that they are investigating the disturbing kidnapping and murder of a retired Navy man, a crime that appears to be a carefully planned plot involving current and former police officers. The victim was 77-year-old Sol Eduardo de Francesco, a well-known and well-liked resident of the city of Zárate. Despite his mobility problems, neighbors say he was often seen walking through the city center or chatting with people in a local plaza. On Wednesday night, September 17th, Sol left his home around 8 p.m. That was the last time any of his loved ones saw him alive. When Sol failed to return, his family reported him missing the next day. By then, investigators had already started piecing together what had happened. Security cameras showed Sol being intercepted on the street and forced into a car. Investigators later identified the vehicle as a Ford Focus. His family and neighbors quickly organized search efforts, even planning a march to demand his safe return. But on Sunday, September 21st, Sol's body was found in a vacant lot off the side of a highway between Zárate and the town of Lima. He had been shot in the back of the head, and investigators believe he was killed soon after his abduction. Within days, 4 suspects were arrested, including 29-year-old Alejo Moreno and his wife, 35-year-old police officer Florencia Valentini. Both had long ties to the Buenos Aires police force. Valentini was still active at the time of the crime, but was immediately suspended from duty. Moreno, however, had already been pushed out after a troubled career that included disciplinary problems and charges of false testimony in another violent case. Investigators say Moreno and Valentini were not acting alone. 2 others were also taken into custody. 32-year-old Nestor Matencio, a Peruvian national who owned a vehicle tied to the abduction, and 28-year-old Lucas Lemos. Security footage showed their cars in the area the night Sol disappeared. Prosecutors believe the motive was money. Investigators say the group may have thought Sol kept cash in his home and tried multiple tricks to lure him out. On the afternoon before his disappearance, Valentini even showed up at Sol's house, claiming to be the daughter-in-law of one of Sol's Navy colleagues and inviting him to his birthday party. Apparently, Valentini really is the daughter-in-law of the man in question, but the party was completely fake. In fact, when police spoke to the man, he said he had no contact with his son or Valentini. When the fake birthday party ruse didn't work on Sol, authorities say his killers resorted to the kidnapping. The case has horrified the community, not only because of the brutality of the crime, but also because police officers are among the accused. Zárate's mayor, Marcelo Matzkin, confirmed that while investigators are still working on a motive, the evidence suggests robbery was at the heart of the plot. At the time of this recording, all 4 suspects remain in custody, facing charges of aggravated illegal deprivation of liberty and homicide. Police in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais say that a criminal defense lawyer was brutally gunned down in broad daylight this week in a shocking attack that was caught on camera. The victim has been identified as 32-year-old Camila Rodrigues dos Santos. Around 7 a.m. on Monday, September 22nd, security footage shows her standing next to a yellow delivery van in the city of Belo Horizonte. As she opens the door, a silver Kia pulls up in front of her car. A masked man gets out, raises a gun, and fires repeatedly before getting back in the car and speeding off. Witnesses say as many as 20 shots rang out. Police later collected at least 10 spent shell casings at the scene and have said that Camila died almost instantly. By 11:30 a.m., her body had been sent off for an autopsy. Investigators say Camila co-owned a beverage distribution business with her boyfriend, and the van she was standing by was used to deliver beer. Some reports state that he was present at the time of the shooting, while others say he arrived shortly after. On social media, Camila described herself as an attorney who practiced criminal, civil, family, and labor law. She earned her law degree in 2019 and had gone on to complete advanced studies in civil procedure and accounting. Police have not yet identified suspects or determined a motive, but colleagues told local outlets that Camila had faced threats tied to high-profile cases she'd been involved in. Many have suggested that further evidence of this can be found in a video Camila posted to social media before her murder. In that video, Camila stated, quote, "Good evening, everyone. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a bright person, a nice person, up to a point. So I'm putting it here because there are a lot of gossipers, right? So you can pass on the message. I'm at war." She went on to state, quote, "Since you don't answer me, since you don't get back to me, that's it. I'm not threatening, I'm warning you what I'm going to do." The video comes off simultaneously threatening and disturbing given the circumstances, but unfortunately, Camila never provided any real context for what she was talking about. Forensic teams continue to process evidence while the Minas Gerais civil police lead the investigation. The Brazilian Bar Association, meanwhile, issued a statement condemning the killing as an affront to the rule of law. They called for urgent security measures to protect lawyers, proposed legislation to classify attacks on attorneys as heinous crimes, and announced a special commission to oversee the case and ensure accountability. The organization argued that Camila's murder is part of a disturbing trend. According to Brazil's National Bar Federation, at least 6 lawyers have been shot in 2025 alone. Observers warn that these attacks not only put legal professionals at risk, but also threaten the justice system itself, discouraging attorneys from taking on dangerous cases and leaving courts short-staffed. At the time of this recording, police say that those responsible for Camila's death remain at large. Her murder has left her community on edge and has resulted in urgent calls for better protection for those working on the front lines of Brazil's legal system. A Japanese father reportedly got the shock of his life last week when he not only came face to face with a terrifying home intruder, but he also discovered the equally sick and strange reason he was there. The bizarre encounter happened just after 4 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th, when the unidentified father in question slid open the door to a traditional Japanese-style room inside his family's home. That's where he found a grown man dressed in his teenage daughter's school uniform. The outfit had reportedly been left hanging out to dry, but the suspect apparently would have actually had to break in order to get to it. Upon being discovered, the intruder, later identified as 37-year-old office worker Kenta Okazaki, immediately tried to flee while still wearing the clothing. The father, meanwhile, shouted, "Don't run away," and chased after him. A scuffle broke out outside of the home, during which the father sustained injuries to his face. But despite the struggle, he managed to hold Okazaki until police arrived. After being taken into custody, the 37-year-old was apparently quite candid with police, later admitting, quote, "I broke in to steal women's clothing." He was arrested on suspicion of robbery and assault. Authorities subsequently revealed why the father had been so determined not to let Okazaki get away. They noted that the same house had been targeted 3 or 4 years earlier, and during that crime, school uniforms were also stolen. The father added in an interview, quote, "My daughter's uniform had been stolen in the past, and someone broke in again, so I thought I couldn't let this burglar get away, so I acted accordingly." Police are now looking into whether Okazaki may have been behind those earlier thefts as well, and are still investigating exactly how he gained entry into the home. Authorities on the island nation of Singapore say that a man has officially pleaded guilty to serious charges this week, following a truly unhinged incident nearly 2 years ago when he threatened to bomb a cruise ship after losing money gambling while on holiday. The whole thing began back on October 11th, 2023, when the man in question, 41-year-old Neo Hui Gim, boarded a Resorts World Cruises ship with his parents. The family had booked a short 2-day trip, which took them from Singapore to Malaysia and back. According to reports, after heading out to sea, Gim initially planned to see a concert that was being held on the ship, but was turned away after being told that tickets for the performance were sold out. Instead, he decided to make a visit to the ship's casino. He would go on to make several more visits to the casino, during which he lost around 2,000 Singapore dollars, the equivalent of about $1,500 US. Despite the fact that no one had forced him to gamble, or to keep gambling for that matter, Gim apparently blamed the cruise line for his losses. So much so that less than an hour after getting off the boat on October 13th, he began to send a series of threats to the cruise line demanding his money back. From the sounds of it, Gim got straight to the point. The subject line of his very first email to the company was, quote, "Bomb at Resorts World Cruises." The message read, quote, "If I don't receive the money, I hope that one day Resorts World Cruises will explode and all guests and service personnel will drop into the sea." Now, you might be saying to yourself, that's pretty wild, but it's not necessarily an explicit threat. Well, as I alluded to a second ago, that was only Gim's first email. Over the course of that same afternoon, the 41-year-old reportedly sent at least 2 other messages to different Resorts World Cruises employees. Those messages contain lines like, quote, "Next time, if I lose again, I'll make sure the whole cruise is burnt," and, quote, "Please return me back my monies, else the ship will explode and everyone dropped into the sea. Next time when I cruise again and happen to lose money, I'll ensure the entire cruise ship explode." One email simply stated, quote, "Your cruise will be burnt down." Now, considering that Gim's cruise had just ended, the company had to take these threats seriously and make sure he wasn't still aboard the ship. Police were called, a ship-wide inspection had to be done, and the whole scare apparently caused a significant delay for the next group of approximately 4,000 travelers who were scheduled to leave that day. Unfortunately for Gim, it didn't take long for police to figure out who he was, and that's because he'd used the same email to threaten the company that he had to book his cruise. He was arrested that same day and this week pleaded guilty to communicating false information about a harmful situation. According to local media, the 41-year-old is scheduled to be sentenced next month. He is currently facing up to 7 years in prison, a fine of $50,000, or both. Police in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh released a heartbreaking update in the case of a missing young woman this week, announcing that not only had she been murdered, but the case was solved thanks to a chilling piece of photographic evidence. The victim was a 22-year-old woman named Akanksha, who lived in the city of Kanpur and worked at a local restaurant. Investigators say that she had been in a relationship with a 28-year-old electrician named Suraj Kumar Uttam. The pair first met about a year ago through Instagram, and since then had fallen in love and moved in together. However, according to police, things took a horrifying turn on July 21st, when the couple got into a heated argument inside their rented room in the city's Hanuman Vihar area. During the confrontation, Uttam allegedly slammed Akanksha's head against a wall before strangling her to death. Following the crime, police say Uttam phoned a friend, Ashish Kumar, to help cover up the crime. Together, the two men placed Akanksha's remains into a suitcase, loaded it onto a motorcycle, and rode nearly 60 miles into Banda district, where they dumped her into the Yamuna River. Disturbingly, it's now alleged that before doing so, Uttam paused to take a selfie with the suitcase containing Akanksha's body, a photo later recovered from his phone. He also attempted to throw investigators off by hiding Akanksha's cell phone on a train bound for the state of Bihar. For weeks, Akanksha's family desperately searched for answers about what had happened to her. Her mother, Vijayashri, said that her daughter's phone went dead on July 22nd. Despite multiple visits to police, a missing persons report wasn't officially filed until August 8th. Finally, on September 16th, Vijayashri lodged a formal complaint against Uttam, alleging that he had kidnapped her daughter. Just 2 days later, on September 18th, police detained both Uttam and Kumar. During interrogation, Uttam initially tried to mislead officers, but when confronted with his phone and location records proving he had been with Akanksha on the night she disappeared, he broke down and confessed. The motive was apparently infidelity, though reports seem to contradict each other as to who was accusing who of cheating. Both suspects have now been arrested and sent to jail as the investigation continues. At the time of this recording, police are still searching for Akanksha's body in the Yamuna River. Authorities in the Australian state of Queensland released a devastating development in the case of a 49-year-old woman this week, announcing that her death, initially thought to be a tragic accident, has now been ruled a homicide. And they allege that the man responsible for her murder is her former partner. The case began nearly 7 months ago on the morning of February 22nd, when a member of the public made a horrifying discovery. While on a walk at around 5:40 a.m., they spotted the body of 49-year-old mother of two Crystal Beale floating in the Brisbane River. Authorities were called to the scene, sparking what they would later describe as a complex and protracted months-long investigation. According to police, Crystal's final hours began the evening before. At about 8:30 p.m. on February 21st, she left a family dinner with her two children at a restaurant in the Brisbane suburb of Sunnybank. From there, she traveled with a man said to be her former husband, 49-year-old Jesse Beale, to the suburb of West End. Detectives say Jesse was the last person to see Crystal alive. He told them she reportedly got out of his car on Ryan Street around 9:30 that night. For months, it wasn't clear what had happened after that. In fact, initially, it was widely suspected that Crystal's death was a tragic accident. But following a painstaking review of more than 1,000 hours of CCTV footage, police now allege Jesse killed Crystal then threw her body in the river. Fast forward to September 22, 2025. At 5:11 a.m., detectives from the Dutton Park Criminal Investigation Branch and the Homicide Investigation Unit carried out a search warrant at a home on Equestrian Drive in the Gold Coast suburb of Maudsley. Jessie was arrested and charged with 1 count of murder, categorized as a domestic violence offense, as well as misconduct with a corpse. Authorities also confirmed that a white Ford Ranger had been identified as a vehicle of interest during the course of the investigation. Detective Inspector Wayne Francis told reporters that while he could not go into detail about Crystal and Jessie's relationship, police would be alleging there was a history of domestic violence. He added that Crystal's children are coping, quote, as best they can given the circumstances, adding that, quote, no matter what court action occurs subsequently, they can't get their mother back. Crystal's last known sighting was captured on CCTV, footage showing her in a white dress and beige sandals at the family dinner just hours before her death. That image, police say, became a critical piece of the timeline in what they called Operation X-Ray Saba, the effort to reconstruct her life and movements leading up to the crime. Jessie was scheduled to appear in the Brisbane Magistrates Court on September 22nd, though reports state he was not present when the case was mentioned. At the time of this recording, the investigation remains ongoing, and police continue to urge anyone with additional information to come forward. Hey there. Before you take off, we'd just like to take a second and say that we really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Luke and I are so grateful for our incredible Crime Zone community, so thank you for being a part of it. If you want to help Crime Zone continue to grow, one of the easiest things you can do is leave a like on this video and consider subscribing. Be sure to hit that notification bell as well and select all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to support the channel, there are a couple of options. We've got a thriving community over on Patreon, where you can get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. Head over to patreon.com/crimezone to learn more and to meet some of the awesome people whose names are currently on screen. If that isn't your thing, we've also now launched channel memberships so you can join directly here on YouTube. Channel members get a lot of the same perks as on Patreon, including extra content, without the added hassle of having to go off-platform. Now, that being said, we know times are tough and that not everyone is able to support financially. Regardless of your situation though, we want you to know that we truly appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, and we hope to see you soon.